Welcome to Worth Asking, a podcast questioning gender inequality in politics through interviews with politicians across South Asia. In these interviews, we ask leaders about their political journeys, the challenges they face, how they overcome them and emerge as leaders, and stories of allyship and support. Today, we have Honorable Dorji Wangmo, who is a member of the National Assembly of Bhutan. She represents the Bhutan Tendrel Party from Kengkhar constituency in Monggar. Before joining politics, she served for nearly 22 years in the Natural Resources Development Corporation Limited in various capacities. She also contested in the 2023 National Council elections. So let's get started with the questions that are worth asking. Thank you so much, ma'am, for accepting our invitation to join the podcast.
Kusuzang Pula, and thank you, Ms. Aditi, for having me, and thank you to Center for Gender and Politics and Worth Asking for having me today.
It is indeed our pleasure and honor, ma'am. Thank you so much. So, could you tell us a little bit more about your background and how was it like growing up as a woman in Bhutan?
Actually, I've grown up, studied, and lived my whole life in Bhutan. Worked, except when I was doing my masters. And as a young girl growing up, I did not really feel any differentiation between boys and girls per se. Girls were allowed to, and they could do whatever boys did. In fact, I went to a co-ed school, so it was all equal and no differentiation at all. And even after I completed my studies and joined the workforce, I did not feel any difference. But as I progressed in my career, I did start to notice that the number of women climbing up the career ladder were declining as compared to men. In fact, in the company that I worked, in NRDCL, I was the only woman in the top management team. And I would also like to share this little incident. It's not a little incident, actually, it's just one defining incident which shaped me as a person and my beliefs. When I was very young, I think I was about 11 years old, I watched someone very close to me getting divorced. And you know how it is, that was like more than 30 years ago. So women were like totally dependent on men. And when they got divorced, the woman who was a housewife was like totally lost and helpless. And even at that age, I could see and feel the difficulties that she was going through, even making ends meet. And then I remember thinking to myself at that point of time, I'm going to grow up, complete my studies, get a job, and become so financially independent that I will not have to depend on my husband. And, if he left me or if we got separated, then I would be fine on my own. And I've lived by that principle my whole life. In fact, in school, I used to give my friends the same advice. If somebody was thinking of dropping school, then I would say, well, you should not drop school because you have to be economically independent. And this is what I tell the young girls, including my daughters. The same, I still give them the same advice. And I guess I did not know what it was then, but I understood what women empowerment meant even at that age.
So, ma'am, you talked about being financially independent, and before joining politics also, you were a top professional at the Natural Resources Development Corporation. So, can you tell us a bit more about that moment when you decided to shift to politics? What were your thoughts and how did people around you react to that?
Yeah, so you know how the political representation of women in Bhutan have been like really low. In the first parliamentary elections in 2008, it was only 12%, with just 8 women in the National Council and the National Assembly put together. And then in 2013, it was 4% with just 3 women in the parliament. And then again in 2018, it was only 6% with 6 women, 4 in the National Assembly and 2 in the National Council. So one day, a group of friends, we were just, over coffee, we were having this discussion, we were just chatting, and then we were talking about, how there's too less participation, the importance of increasing participation, the importance of having more women representation in the parliament, etc., etc. And then one of my friends just remarked, if you're really that concerned, then why don't you do it yourself? And I was like, yeah, why not? I mean, you have to lead by example. By lecturing somebody else, things are not going to happen. So why not? Lead by example. I'll do it. And then I also have two daughters. And I thought I should set an example to my girls as well as other young girls to inspire them to come forward and tell them that we can also do it and that we should do it. That's how it all started, actually. Of course, there are other reasons, but that was how it started. And honestly speaking, till then, I had never thought about a political career. And when I told my family and friends about it, they were initially surprised, and some even thought I was joking. But then they also had confidence in me. They encouraged me and supported me. Since then, my family has been my biggest support system, without which I would not be here today. That was sometime in April 2022. And then I resigned from my job at the end of June 2022 and participated in the National Council elections, which happened in April 2023. Then I did not get elected, as you know very well, but I did not lose heart. And when Bhutan Tendrel Party, which is my party now, asked me to join them soon after the National Council elections, I thought, well, here's the second opportunity being given to me. And I just took it. And here I am.
Yes, ma'am. And like you mentioned, you are a recently elected member of the parliament. So could you share with us your priorities for the next 5 years?
I represent a constituency in eastern Bhutan, which is quite remote and underdeveloped. So my focus would be on bringing development to my constituency and uplifting the lives of the people there. At the national level, I would like to focus on helping to take my country forward to the 21st century, and as envisioned by our King, His Majesty the King, take the country to the developed country status by 2030. So at the national level, that would be my focus. And I would also like to work on helping to increase the participation of women in politics. I know there are many smart, capable, and qualified women in Bhutan, and I would like to work on bringing some of them to politics. We need more women in the parliament. So yeah, these are some of the things that I would be prioritizing.
Absolutely. Ma'am, can you also talk a little bit more about your journey in the Bhutanese political ecosystem? And what are some of the challenges that you faced?
Yeah, like I mentioned in the beginning, I went through 2 elections within a span of like about 1.5 years. I cannot say that I felt really any real challenges from being a woman in my fairly short journey in politics. I've been very fortunate to have a very supportive and encouraging family, and I've had somebody to look after my children. So that helped a lot. For any woman to be successful, it is important to have a support system. Having said that, of course, as a mother of 2 young girls, it was not easy at times, especially when my girls were sick and I could not be with them and I missed important events in their lives. I felt like there were like huge time lapses in my life because I had to be away for months, and then there were a lot of things I was missing. So yeah, I suppose that way it's easier for men, and it's different for women like that. Otherwise, like I said already, I did not really face like real challenges from being a woman. Of course, there are other related challenges which are like outside this.
Right, right. So, if we talk about challenges, you mentioned a couple of personal challenges, right?
Mhm.
So, can you share how did you overcome or how did you balance them?
Um, I couldn't really do much about it. Like I said, I have a very supportive husband actually who said, "You just go and do your thing. Don't worry about home. I'll take care of everything." And then I have my sister and other family members who were there, so that really helped actually. And whenever I could, I would come here and try to spend as much time as possible with them. But yeah, I think things were beyond my control. They were like out of my control. I couldn't do much about it.
Right. I understand. So, if we talk about politics, ma'am, while democracy paved the way for women's representation in politics, Bhutan still ranks low on the proportion of women contesting and winning elections. So, what do you think are the opportunities and also the challenges that are very unique to Bhutan today?
I feel very lucky to be born in Bhutan, actually, where girls are given equal opportunities as boys, starting right from the education. Our constitution and laws are very clear on this about equal rights and all that. Traditionally, women's roles were primarily confined to the domestic sphere, with but with modernization and education, women have gained more opportunities in to participate in the public life. And today, women are increasingly engaged in professions such as education, healthcare, business, and civil service, to mention a few, contributing to the socio-economic development of the country. The number of women executives in the civil service has also increased significantly. However, in the realm of politics, women's participation has remained comparatively low. Women in Bhutan often bear significant responsibilities within their families and households, including childcare, health, elder care, and household chores. Balancing these responsibilities with political engagement can be difficult, and especially if there is a lack of support from the family members and societal institutions. Women also generally lack self confidence and undermine their own potential, which could also be holding them back. So, yeah, these are the uh, challenges and the unique opportunities that Bhutan has.
Ma'am, since we are talking about women in politics, and since there are just two women MPs in the National Assembly, only you in the opposition, do you feel any pressure or extra burden to perform as an MP representing, say, women's voices and concerns?
Yeah, as you pointed out, we are only two women MPs in the National Assembly, and the other one is a cabinet minister. So that leaves just me. I wish there were more of us, but there's nothing really much I can do about it at this point. So yes, I feel a little pressure because I have to perform really well. I have to be a good role model and build the electorate's trust in women's leadership in this position, so that the way for the future women are paved. Having said that, I also like to look at this positively and take it as an opportunity rather than as an extra burden. If I play my cards really well, it's a very good opportunity for me to make men my allies and use them to advocate for women and help amplify women's voices and concerns. I'm also hoping that those outside the parliament, after seeing such low representation of women in parliament, will also realize the need for more representation and take some positive actions to increase participation in the future elections.
Ma'am, you mentioned about having men as allies. So, how do you perceive men's role as allies in supporting and advocating for women's participation in politics? What are the actions that you think male politicians can take in order to be effective allies?
I think men in general have a very crucial role to play in supporting and advocating for women's participation in politics. In fact, they can be our biggest allies. Therefore, it's important to bring men as well as women on board for increasing women's participation. When women advocate, sometimes it can be seen as activism, and if we are not very careful, it could get more detrimental than helpful. In fact, it could backfire. But when men do it, the matter gets looked at from a different angle and it becomes more acceptable. So, in that way, men can play a very crucial role. And politicians in particular can advocate and promote gender equality policies, such as measures to increase representation of women in political positions. For example, let's look at party structures. The men can recognize the need for more women candidates and advocate for more inclusivity. Men can also mentor and support female colleagues, provide guidance and assistance to help them navigate political challenges and advance their careers, just to mention a few.
So, just extending this question a little, ma'am, what would you like to tell your colleagues in politics about becoming a better ally for gender equality in politics?
Well, I would like to say, hey, this is not just a woman's issue. Um, if there's no gender equality in politics, everybody should be concerned, since at the end of the day, it's not just women who are affected by low representation, but everyone else, including men, the whole community, because of the diverse perspectives and experiences that women can bring. Therefore, I would say to the men, invest time in educating yourself about gender issues, intersectionality, and the experiences of women in politics. Understand the systemic barriers and biases that women face, no matter how subtle, and commit to challenging and dismantling them in your own spheres of influence. And say no to sexism, even in jest. I mean, you can't even joke about it. So, yeah, that's what I would say to them.
Talking about sexism and misogyny, you studied in Canberra, right where Julia Gillard's misogyny speech became an unforgettable Australian TV moment. What were your thoughts then, ma'am? And do you think that South Asia needs that speech in their parliaments too?
When I heard the misogyny speech, I thought, wow, here is a woman who has been pushed too far. And I absolutely admire her courage and ability for being able to call a spade a spade. In fact, I thoroughly enjoyed her speech. With regard to your question about whether South Asia also needs that speech, I suppose it depends on the situation. If there are highly sexist and misogynist behaviors and comments, why not? Everybody should, be able to do it.
Ma'am, if given that power and opportunity, what is that one thing that you would want to change for women in Bhutanese politics?
There is this strongly embedded social culture, gender roles that are prescribed by the Bhutanese society to women and men. The belief that the arena of politics is more suited for men and that men make better leaders than women. So, if given the opportunity, I would like to change that. The one thing that I would like to change for women is to increase participation, educate and create awareness on why we need more women representatives, have mentorship and support networks, create safety nets, provide trainings to boost self-confidence and self-esteem, all to encourage participation. I mentioned earlier that women generally lack that self-confidence, so we have to, build that up. And politics is, as I said, is still seen largely as a male domain. And what we have to keep in mind is that if women representation is low, it's also because of low participation. For the final round of the National Assembly elections this year, out of the total of 94 candidates, 47 in each of the two parties, there were only 6 women candidates, 3 each. So out of 6, 2 got elected. So if we go by percentage, it is about 33%. And even in the National Council elections in April 2023, out of 89 candidates contesting for 20 seats, there were only 5 women and only 1 got elected. So the bottom line is we need to increase participation to increase the probability of having a higher number of women representatives. And this is what I would like to change given an opportunity.
And I'm sure, ma'am, there would be some women who are waiting to join and who aspire to join Bhutanese politics. What is your message to them? And how would you personally like to support them?
Well, my message to young women aspiring to join politics would be there's nothing that women cannot do that men can. We are as good as men, if not better. Have faith and confidence in yourselves. We need more women to come forward, so please don't be hesitant. Once you start the journey, it's not that bad at all. It is our duty, and we must take on the onus and responsibility ourselves. If we don't help ourselves, no one else can. So please don't hold yourselves back. We can do it. So that is the message I would give them. And how I would support them personally, compared to men, women lack the network. Men play a lot of games and, they have a lot of networking. And women lack that. I would like to bring together women from different walks of life, have them interact with each other and create a network, something like a women's club. It can be an informal one to start with, and we can take it slowly from there. Once we start meeting and interacting and sharing ideas, experiences with each other, I'm sure we would find that there are some who are actually interested but don't know how to go about it. So, we can build on it from there. And then we can also start mentorship programs, provide trainings on how to present themselves, how to campaign, basically boost their self-confidence. I can also support them by pushing for policies which promote gender equality in politics. Yeah, so.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, you also mentioned about the importance of networks. About those networks and women's clubs, do you think that a group like a women's caucus will help?
Yeah, it could help, but again, if it's like personally, I think that if it's just the women who are already in office, then it will not be really able to extend the scope to others. So while the women's caucus would help, we have to make sure that it's open to everybody. And I think we are usually shy, and then we don't know what we're interested in or what we like, and then politics sometimes is like maybe I don't want to go there. So I just wanted to what I think is that it should we have to start it small and informally, and we already have a women's caucus here in Bhutan. I have not been able to attend any of the meetings or the gatherings yet, so I'm not really sure about what's happening there. So yeah, but networking would of course definitely help.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, ma'am. And any final thoughts on women, politics, Bhutan, anything that you would want to share?
My final thoughts are we need to increase the participation of women. I really feel really actually disheartened that so few women are coming up. We have so many promising bright young girls out there, and I'm sure they'll make fantastic leaders. We just need to find them, help them find the way, and then I think 5 years from now, I'm hoping that we will have a much more higher number of women.
Yes, hope so too. Ma'am, thank you so much for joining us on Worth Asking and taking out time to share a bit of your journey with us. Thank you. I really enjoyed this talk.
Thank you. I loved being here and having this conversation with you. Thank you so much, Miss Aditi.
Thank you for joining us on Worth Asking. We express our gratitude to 81 donors who made this year's podcast possible. To learn more about our work and how you can support us, please join our community by visiting www.cgapsouthasia.org/join. If you enjoyed the podcast, please leave us a review and share with your peers, especially young women interested in joining politics. Thank you and stay tuned.